Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Comic Source. One of my favorite creators, one of my favorite people joining me, Tom King, here to talk about some Wonder Woman. Hey, Tom, how are you?
What a pleasure to see you again, Jace. How's everything?
It's
How many
good, man. It's
how many
good.
Christmas trees do you have in your house currently?
Just one. There's only one. It's decorated. Actually, it only has lights on it right now. The Easter decorations came off, and we haven't put up the summer decorations yet. So
The summer Christmas tree.
that's right, the summer tree. But anyway, we're here to talk a little bit about Wonder Woman. Last time we had you on with Daniel, it was a lot of fun to get, writer and artist perspective at the same time. And
Now it's just me. Now I
now
can
it's just
dominate
you,
this and take all the credits. Did I
but
tell you?
you did tease the at the time, upcoming confrontation between Sovereign and Wonder Woman. We wondered when they were going to come face to face. That happened in issue 8. Uh, and Sovereign's plan to kind of break her didn't work. Now he's trying a new tactic in issue 9. So without getting too spoilery, what can you tell our listeners? What can you tease about what happens in the upcoming issue 9 that's out May 22nd? Yeah.
Yeah, this is a three-issue arc where Sovereign tries three different ways to break Diana. Um, and he succeeds and the book ends, and then we cancel Wonder Woman. It becomes Sovereign, the book. It's no, where basically we see Diana push to her utter limits in different ways, and we see how the character of Diana and the strength of Diana and the power of Wonder Woman sort of helps her triumph over her team. So in the first issue, we get her against the lasso of lies and this idea of sort of someone trying to dilute her and to tell her she's less than, and her realizing that she doesn't have to believe that about herself. And in the second one is a very trippy issue that definitely the trippiest and the least grounded of the three, where Diane is isolated. She's sort of put in solitary confinement, and what Sovereign sees that Wonder Woman is a social a person, and that she thrives on sort of helping people, interacting with people, and just to lock her by herself with sort of no sense of time or space for hours and then days and then weeks and then maybe even months would drive her insane. And Diana has to sort of find a way to fight through that. And the way she does is she sort of makes up an um, imaginary worlds in her mind. She closes her eyes and sort of takes her out of it, where she sees her and Steve Trevor in a lot of scenarios with just trying to sort of endure this and get through this sort of loneliness by her and Steve. So it's an issue about her struggle and her overcoming, and also about her relationship with Steve Trevor.
Yeah, and that's what I find so fascinating. I remember you talking, the first time we had you on to preview Wonder Woman about taking her back to her roots and kind of exploring her in a way that maybe hadn't been done before. You mentioned her being social, and there's also some allusions in this issue. And then there's a scene where it comes right out and says that she's not Bruce and she's not Clark. In so many ways, and this is something Scott Snyder explored in his Superman Unchained series. Clark is singular, and there's kind of an isolation. No matter how much he tries to be one of us, he's always the alien. Bruce sort of self-isolates just from the way he is on his his war on crime. Wonder Woman Diana, she goes the exact other way. Is that something that you like when you went back to her earliest stories and her earliest roots and you decided you wanted to tell the story? Was that something that stood out and something you specifically wanted to explore?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a difference between the two of them is that, you know, uh, that Superman is a bit of an orphan. I mean, he has two wonderful adopted parents, but he's always a little bit, forgive the phrase, alienated because of his origins. Um, and Batman, of course, is the ultimate and his sort of revenge story. But Diana is literally raised by a village. Her mother was queen. So, I mean, I wrote about this a little bit in Heroes in Crisis. So there's, when your mother's queen and is off in battle, there's that. But she's always surrounded. And you see in the movie, she's surrounded by other warriors. She's being raised by trainers. She has cousins and a sister, and Donna, and so she's, to me, that's a different kind of raising. It creates a different kind of person and a different kind of strength than Clark and Bruce. Yeah, that's definitely what I'm going for, is the idea that she's always had these sister Amazons around her, and that's part of who she is and why she wants to be a leader, an inspiration, and she doesn't have like one sidekick who's with her. She has a Wonder Girl as a group of people, and she's joining, the Justice League, and it's just so yeah. I'm trying to get her as a social being. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the other thing you
My
mentioned
dog
was
is also saying hello. That's Roxy. How someone's trying to deliver a package to our house.
we're
How
going to talk.
dare
Yeah, we're going
you?
to talk a little bit about some puppies in a minute, for sure. I got to bring that up. But the other thing you mentioned Steve Trevor, and he's such a big part of this story, and Daniel Sampere, the artist, obviously extraordinary, and he gets a chance to really stretch his muscles and have a lot of fun because there's so many different scenes that go through this book, and everybody, especially that scene on the beach, like, oh my God. So when you're
Yeah,
when
it was when I came with the idea because the easiest way to have done this would have been to cut back and forth between her stuck where she's stuck and her having the dreams.
right,
And at the very beginning, I was like, what if I didn't cut back? What if I'm in the dreams the entire time? So you see it almost from sort of imaginary Steve Trevor's POV instead of from hers. And I liked it. There was because that's what I wanted to get at, not sort of the reality that had been forced upon her, but the reality she was creating, and to do it from Wonder Woman's perspective. Yeah, and so very much sorry. I interrupted. You go ahead.
no, well, I was just curious. So many of the scenes, we see things of that are kind of recent importance to the story you're telling, the pool hall, the cemetery where she was first confronted by the soldiers. But then we also see, awesome things like the beach at Paradise Island, or we're out on a Western frontier. Was it tough to choose the kind of the backgrounds? Did you and Daniel collaborate on what he wanted to draw? Like, I'm just curious how you came up with the actual settings. I mean, obviously it's going to be Diana and Steve here, but how did you choose the settings?
I very much reached out to Daniel and was like, Daniel, I'm going to do this thing's going to take place anywhere and everywhere. It could be in space. It could be anything. Is there something you're dying to draw? Just tell me and I'll find a way to make it work. And he chose, I mean, there's a scene that takes place from Barcelona. There's a scene that takes place in a beautiful Barcelona location. He chose the beach. He had this vision for a beach with the glowing organisms in it, and he chose the Western. Or did he choose? I think we just talked about the Western. He chose another one. I can't remember, but and then I executed the ones he wanted. Then I sort of added some, and there's stuff from Diana's history. There's like that the moment where she killed Maxwell Lord or supposedly killed Maxwell Lord, and there's lots of call outs to every era. There's the mod era. There's a call out to the So I tried to get all of Diana, not all of because you can't do 85 years in one issue, but I tried to get a ton of Wonder Woman history in those backgrounds.
Yeah, fantastic job. I love her and Trevor just sitting on the steps of the Hall of Justice, just chatting, like
Yeah.
friends would do. Yeah, it was great. Um, but yeah, I mean, Steve really is such a big part of this issue, and really he's been a big part of the series. He was her sounding board early on when, things started going sideways. And then we saw them in that amazing issue that we talked about with the battle in Washington, D.C. Um, is he, for you, is he kind of the other side of the coin for her? She's, a demigod. She's super powerful. She's, absolutely amazing. He's so grounded. He has no superpowers. He's so grounded and in a lot of ways is kind of our almost POV character. I go back to the TV show as well, where he was our POV character. And I don't want to use the word worship, but, it's that connection. It's that times where he's in awe of what she is and what she can be. And obviously, her beauty and her compassion and everything. Such a great, like I said, like a sounding board.
Yeah, I think other side of the coin is not the right terminology because how can you be the other side of the coin from Wonder Woman? I mean, like that's too much pressure on anyone. She might be the greatest superhero ever made. I don't know how you can. I um I I'm writing a comic now called "What is the Point of Steve Trevor?" So it's literally like what I'm doing at this very moment. Because I'm trying to answer that question. Uh, I mean, Steve Trevor is an honorable, good man. He's tough. He's hardworking, and he loves Diana, and she loves him. I don't think it's so much more complicated than that.
Yeah, I guess sometimes the simplest stories are the ones that, can relate to. And, obviously we don't have the chance to love a demigod. But I think we can all relate. Like, you're married, you have your significant other. I'm married, I have my significant other. I think it's easy for us to kind of put ourselves in Steve's shoes. But yeah, I've also heard other people say, well, I just don't know why she would be with him, when she could be with anyone, basically. I think there's something to be explored there.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say it's a weird concept that like the best of us have to go with someone who is equally accomplished. I mean, sometimes the most accomplished person just falls in love with someone who wants to live a simple life. And that's not a bad thing. In fact, I feel like there's probably more examples of that than the other. Um, if you look at like the great couplings in history that have worked out, Um, I don't know, maybe it's I know what comes like John and Abigail Adams is what comes to my head for some reason. Um, like sure, Abigail Adams on some level wanted to, had less ambitious, but she was just as smart and just as cool and just as important maybe to the history of the country, but she wasn't what John Adams was. She didn't have all the titles and glory,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. It's interesting. Something interesting to explore for sure. Well, obviously the antagonist of this piece here, the Sovereign, maybe that's where we say it's really the other side of the coin here because he is so secretive. He is, not out there with compassion, and it's all about him, whereas Wonder Woman is out there fighting for all of us. Um, how much fun is it to write somebody just as despicable as the Sovereign is?
Oh, it's horribly fun. It's hard. Writing Wonder Woman's always because I have those stupid captions, and he uses so many fucking big words. I'm like, come on, man! I don't even know what half of these mean. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? I had to take the dictionary out. Yeah, it's horribly fun. It's like writing Lex Luthor. It's like writing the Joker when you get to sort of write the antagonist, and it's funny because I mean, his first line in the whole comic book is this is how she defeated me. Like he's constantly losing. Like this is a battle he does not win. She's the superhero and he's the villain. Um, so you always sort of see it from his perspective, and he's always spinning it, but you can always tell underneath there's this sort of like inevitability to it. There's this like yeah, there's he's trying to spin that he's the best in the world while he's getting defeated by someone who actually is the best in the world, which is a fun little dichotomy.
Yeah, and it's a little meta too. I'm not going to name any names, but definitely meta. Well, one more issue of this, as you mentioned, we have 9 coming out, and then 10 finishes this arc, um, and then we're going to do an absolute power tie-in, which I find really interesting, and I wanted
I
to
find it
ask you,
interesting as well.
did yeah, so uh, did it kind of dovetail well into what you wanted to do, or does it really feel more like an interlude away from the story that you're telling?
No, it did not dovetail well, but in a good comic book way, in a classic, wonderful. I my first comic ever, I've said this a lot, was Avengers 300, which is an Inferno tie-in that Walt Simonson wrote, which was in the middle of his run, and I love it. I own pages from it. It's my favorite thing ever, and it's the Inferno just crashes into that title and then leaves. And when I agreed to I know when they asked me to, whenever we came to an agreement that I would go back to doing mainstream superhero comics after what 5 years off of doing these miniseries, one of the things they're like, there's going to be crossovers, and I was like, bring them on, let's do it. Let's do it old school, just the way I was raised, where something crazy comes along, we press pause on the story, and then we're in acts of vengeance. Like let's. I didn't want to be that like arrogant shitty writer who's like, no, I'm too good for this. Let's go off and no, fuck that. I want to be like Walt Simonson. I want to roll with the punches and create something awesome. I want to be like Walt Simonson in most things. So this kind of just,
Yeah, who doesn't?
just
Who
fits
does?
that, right? So yeah, no, it doesn't dovetail well, but it's super fun. It's my responsibility to make it as good as it can be.
So
And Mark Waid is writing it. He's a goddamn hero. I love Mark. So anything I can do to support Mark is good for is I'm for.
yeah, we did a preview episode on the Comic Source about Absolute Power. We're super excited for it. All kinds of really cool ideas. Are we going to get an extra issue on your Wonder Woman run to make up for that, or did you know early enough on that you kind of planned out for it?
I mean, there's no extra issue. This is ongoing. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna go 101 instead of 100. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All I know is whenever your last issue is, I want one more.
Okay.
Just be like, think back. You know what? That I had that crossover. I got one more in me.
I'm sure people have noticed I've gone kind of quiet on social media and everything. I've shifted to a new phase in my life where I'm doing a lot of Hollywood, capital L, a lot of Hollywood stuff. I'm living half my life in LA now. Um, and I'm sure all this stuff will come out eventually. But that means I'm paring down my comic book work for the first time in 10 years. But Wonder Woman is still going to be there. That's the one that's going to keep me. Obviously, Penguin is going away and all the but Wonder Woman is going to stay, and I'm going to keep writing. So there's no sign of stopping anytime soon.
All right. Well, that's good to hear, because we love your work, and not to call you out specifically, but so much of what this is a love story, and I have a feeling you're like me, like you really get down to the nitty gritty, your love of crime noir, old fashioned kind of stuff. You're a hopeless romantic at heart. Are you willing to admit that?
Who's not a hopeless
All
romantic at
right.
heart? No,
Exactly.
what you're gonna say? Oh, I'm not a romantic. My favorite movie is Die Hard. How does Die Hard end? He walks out with his wife and kisses her. What are you gonna? Where's your
Exactly.
non-hopeless romantic?
Yes,
You don't
exactly.
have Robin Hood without Maid Marian. It doesn't exist.
Every
Even
time I
John Wook and his puppy. You gonna take the puppy away? I know the wife comes first, but it was really a love story between a puppy and a man.
100%, 100% great, great take. But yeah, I don't think you read your Batman Catwoman run, or you read this and not realize how much Tom is a hopeless romantic, how much he loves his wife. So the other thing that you love, you just mentioned it, puppies, right? Dogs. Roxy's a big part of your
I
life.
do love puppies. I
Uh,
know. It's
the
been a weird week in the puppy news. It's been a weird
Yes,
week.
yeah, been
I've been holding back saying a lot of negative things because I'm trying to be nice.
yeah, exactly. We don't want to open that can of worms. But what we do want to say is the backups with Lizzie and John Kent and Damien have been a lot of fun in these books. And again, we don't want to spoil what happens in the backup, but let's just say that if you love puppies, man, you are going to dig this backup.
Oh,
Uh,
you've read that back? You've read the Corgi backup?
I've read the Corgi backup. How much fun was it writing that?
It was first of all it was some big pressure. So Belen comes to me. We're at a con, I don't know, New York maybe, and I've never met Belen before, and she's been killing it on these backups. I cannot talk enough about how wonderful she is, and how much joy she brings these backups, which are my favorite things. Um, and she comes up to me and she's joking, but she's a little mad at me because I did a whole issue with kangaroos, and she's from Spain, and she's like, I don't know what a kangaroo is. I've never drawn a kangaroo. Why am I drawing kangaroos on 30 panels? And I felt so bad. I was like, what? I'll draw anything. I'll make up for you. I'm sorry. What can I have you? She's like, I want to draw samurais and I want to draw corgis. And I was like,
Specifically, not just puppies, but corgis
yeah,
specifically.
that was my request. That was my assignment. So I went home to my kids and I was like, do you guys have any stories with samurais and corgis? And I was like, what do I do? So if you read the one before this, Lizzie becomes a samurai by traveling in the past, and this is the corgi issue that I promised her. And and she killed it. Yeah, that's it. They should not have paid me to write this. No, DC's on this call. They should have paid me twice as much as they. But this was just a freaking. I mean, to write John and Damien corgis was the most fun thing ever. Please, I hope people love it.
Yeah,
I
I was
love it.
smiling ear to ear. I mean, we have three dogs. We're big dog lovers ourselves in my family. So yeah, it was so much fun. And Belen is just, she's so talented and so amazing. I got a chance to meet her for the first time at San Diego Comic-Con last year. So yeah, I can vouch for her talent. And yeah, she's just so nice. I don't know how you could possibly have said no to whatever she requested.
Who knows what she's going to request next? What comes after samurais and corgis? I guess we'll find out. Oh, but the next three have some fun stuff in it though. The next three are also crazy. They're really funny.
Yeah, I
So
mean, again, I love the backups. I love the dynamic between the next generation of Trinity. So anyway, it's been great catching up with you, Tom. Remember, everybody, Wonder Woman 9 hits comic shops on the 22nd of May. So be sure to let your retailer know now to reserve you a copy. As we're winding down here, Tom, any last thoughts for our audience?
just to say, I mean, I say this a lot, so you're probably used to it, so I apologize. But I mean, to say thank you. It's no secret the comics are going through a tough time. We did so well during the pandemic. And we're kind of getting used to the new reality of people going outside. And those of you who are still coming into the stores, those of you who are buying Wonder Woman, those of you listening about comics, talking about comics, Instagramming about comics, you are making an industry survive, and I am incredibly grateful to you.
Yeah, and I'll add my thanks as well for joining us, everybody. We appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you next time.